Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. This is Shivam Kumar. Today we are going to discuss about India-EU Free Trade Agreement. This is being called the mother of all deals, a game changer. But if you look at the market has completely ignored as if nothing has happened. In this video, we are going to discuss why is it so, whether market is right in ignoring the free trade agreement or they should have paid more attention to it. Let's dive into the contents. We'll cover all about the deal that was 18 years in the making. What are the key beneficiary sectors? Why have the markets completely ignored this deal? And what are the past precedents of deal announcements but no enforcements, especially from the EU side? For that, let's start with the disclaimer. This video is strictly for educational purposes. This is not a buy-sell advice. If you have to buy or sell anything, please consult your financial advisor or do your independent research. Do not take those decisions based on this video. So what are the India and EU trade dynamics? Let's first discuss that. So India exports around 70 billion euro plus worth of goods to the EU. The biggest part of that is machinery and transport equipment. And essentially what you mean is the heavy equipment and offshoring equipment that L&T sells to EU. Tata Motors is one key player over here. BHEL motors are being sold in EU. So that constitutes around 27% of what India exports to the EU. The second biggest line item are the chemicals, which are around 23%, 16.5 billion euro. Then third in the line are steel pipes, plastic films, rubber hoses, basically manufactured materials that are classified basis their material. So those are around 20%. Then the fourth in line is apparel, footwear, furniture, home decor, etc. That is around 12.7%, $9 billion. And balance is mineral and fuel, metals and other items like food, live animals, fats, oils, etc. Now let's discuss what EU exports to India. Import 48.8 billion euro plus worth of goods from EU in one financial year, and 50% of that is machinery and transport equipment. What we import are essentially the train sets of our metro, the heavy engineering that goes into our metro, the heavy commercial vehicles are imported from EU, some marine aircrafts, etc. are also imported from EU. Then next in line is chemicals, which is around 16%, $8 billion. Then steel pipes, plastic films, rubber hoses, etc. we also import from them, around 14%. And the balance is crude derivatives, food and live animals, beverages and tobacco and other substances. So if you notice, the line items between what we export to EU and what we import from them are the same, but there are nuances. What we export to EU are the products which are labor intensive. What we import from them are materials which are which are heavy in precision engineering, heavy in R&D. For example, we will export some light commercial vehicles or regular trucks to them, but we will import heavy duty metro rail train sets, metro rail systems, and heavier commercial vehicles, aircrafts, ships from the EU. So basically that's the difference. While the line item is the same, the level of engineering, complexity, precision that goes into the components are different. Now let's discuss a brief history of this deal and what are the implications of this deal. This deal has been under discussion for the past 18 years. The discussion started in year 2007 and they were suspended in year 2013 after 15 rounds of negotiations. The talks were reinitiated in 2022. And the deal was finally agreed upon in 2026, and I think the external geopolitics pressure from US to the EU was a key catalyst in pushing this deal through. There have been a lot of disagreements throughout the course of this deal, especially in sectors like agriculture, in intellectual properties, etc. And what does this deal, after having been agreed upon, essentially mean? So it means that the EU has agreed to slash tariffs on Indian exports, which are contributing to 91% of the value. And in reciprocation, India has also agreed to slash tariffs on 93% by value of EU exports to India. So this is a win-win situation. More than 90% of the value that is of the trade that is happening between the two countries or the group of countries that has been freed up from the export and import duties. Now, once because around 91% of the value of Indian exports have been exempted from tariff for now, what are the key beneficiary sectors? The first sector is textile and apparel. So currently, the trade happening between India, the exports from India to EU are $6.8 billion. The current tariff is 12%, and tariff post free trade agreement is 0%. And what are the key listed Indian beneficiaries? So KPR Mills, Vardhaman Textiles, Arvind Textiles, Trident, Gokuldas Exports, etc. These firms can be the key beneficiaries. I think it would be a good time to read into these firms before taking the investment decisions. And footwear and leather products, $1.1 billion is the current trade. The EU tariff is 17%. This again goes down to zero. The key beneficiaries are Mesa International, Bata India. Further, gems and jewelry, which is 2.5 billion of exports from India to EU currently. The tariff is 4%. It also goes down to 0%. And the key beneficiary for this would be Web of Global. Web of Global can be really interesting if you read about the company. They are recently trying to expand into the Germany and the UK markets. Further sectors that we can look at are the seafood, plastic and rubber, chemicals. The key beneficiaries are on the screen. I request you to read through them. We will create a separate video on which particular companies to pick once this deal is finally made into a law. Currently it's not a law. There are a lot of steps it has to follow, but this is a good starting point on what sectors should you read, what can be the key beneficiaries of this deal. So now we have discussed what are the sectors that are beneficiary of this deal, what are the potential companies that can be beneficiary of this deal. But we will now cover why markets did not react to the news at all, why markets have completely ignored this news, because a lot needs to happen from now and the time when this deal becomes legally binding. So this will take at least 1.5 years. There are a lot of processes to it, processes we will discuss subsequently, and there are chances that this deal gets never translated to a legal document. Okay, so deal currently is just an announcement between the two parties, between the leading party of India and the top leadership of EU. It still has to be ratified and passed as a law in the European parliaments. So let's discuss the steps which are involved in that. So first of all, this deal will go through a council of EU approval. The voting members here are the trade ministers of all 27 EU member states. What can happen here are that there can be clarifications which can be demanded. The text of the deal can change. I mean, which sectors can be completely exempted, maybe 1 or 2% tariffs can be levied here and there. So the text can change. The deal cannot get cancelled over here. What can get changed is the text and the fine print of the deal. After the Council of EU gives its approval to the deal, this deal has to be approved in the European Parliament. And in here, 720 members of the European Parliament have to vote either yes or no for the deal. And there can be likely objections like in terms of labor standards, environmental safety and ESG norms, the human rights, intellectual property rights, and there can be multiple to and fro's. And the bottom line is the deal can be cancelled here if the deal does not get a majority yes out of the 720 voting members of the EU Parliament. So, and this entire process can take 6 months, 9 months or a year, multiple iterations within the EU Parliament. Then there is further step which is not given but will be deliberated whether the deal needs to go through this step or not, which is the national ratification. So even if the European Parliament comprising of 720 members have approved a deal, there is a possibility that this deal goes through each individual parliament for approval, and that takes it to 27 parliaments which will be debating and approving the deal, and any single parliament not approving the deal means the deal is put on hold. And this process, if at all this deal goes through this process, can take years, like 1 year is the bare minimum that this process will take. Hence, the timeline between from here, this deal going and translating to a final legal document is anywhere between 1 year at the minimum and maybe 3 years, 4 years, or maybe this deal completely getting cancelled. Yes, getting cancelled. So there are past precedents to the deals getting announced but finally not translating into legal documents. The The first example that comes to my mind is the Chinese Comprehensive Agreement on Investment between China and EU. This agreement was under discussion for 11-12 years. The discussion started in 2013, and finally around 2024-25, the Parliament of EU voted against the agreement. And just like India EU FTA, this was also formally announced by both the governments that they will be going ahead with this. So there are past precedents that deals are announced but do not go through with EU. So we have to understand that about EU, that EU is filled with regulations. They over-regulate a lot of stuff. Hence, I think that's the key reason that markets did not rejoice to it. And I think I also, as an investor, would wait for further clarifications and at least some sort of bullish signals from the European Parliament of this deal going through and translating into a legal document. So that's it for now. Thank you for watching. If you like the content, please subscribe to my channel. I will be making another video on India EU FTA, where I will discuss about one key variable that can decide the course of which sector will be the beneficiary and which sector will not be the beneficiary. Until then, see you next time.